Theme park employees, please share your horror stories and theme park secrets. How to make the best of your time. I worked on a major roller coaster many years ago. Two preteen boys rode in the front seat and were screaming down the first hill. The ride takes a sharp turn there and one of the kids managed to have his teeth hit the other kid's forehead. They rode for the next 2.5 minutes screaming and bleeding as only a head injury can. Came back into the station looking like everyone in the first section had been in a war. A ride they will always remember. That must have made for an amazing souvenir photo. One time a bird dive bombed into the funnel cake frying oil and exploded. We had to fish it out. I worked in a water park in a dual park single entrance location of a very common chain of theme parks for about a decade during high school and college. The frequency of adults crapping in the pool was revolting. 2 stories of note. 1. I was working a party for the employees and their guests after normal park hours one night when a fellow supervisor and I noticed some poop prints meandering down the sidewalk. One employee followed the trail towards the bathrooms, hoping to find a child running frantically to make it. I followed the trail in the other direction, away from the bathroom, praying that I didn't find anything but the end of the trail. I make it about 15 drips down the path heading away from the bathroom towards the lazy river and look up only to see a giant woman, built like a house, wearing a floral one piece. She has a giant crap stain on her ass and just streams of diarrhea running down both legs. She is just strolling along, not a care in the world. I had to spend hours scrubbing crap off a texture concrete surface because some giant woman must have gambled on a fart and couldn't care less that she had buckets of crap piling up in her bathing suit. 2. One time a kid was floating around the river and just dropped trow and let her rip. It was one massive, and I mean giant, turd. We had to chase it around the current and scoop it out. It was larger than any baked potato I have ever seen, was girthier than my clenched fist, and weighed as much as a Qdoba Chipotle burrito. Long story short, never swim in a water park. If a public pool is roped off for maintenance, in my experience it's 80/20 someone crapped in it and the pool techs needed to shock the pool with chlorine because of cryptosporidium concerns. Shitprints, a word I hope no one would ever need to invent. Employee comes to work one morning after partying all night. Nobody notices that she isn't 100%. Security guys later say she seemed fine. Employee gets to her station on an elevated platform, doesn't follow procedures, falls about 3 stories and dies right before gates were supposed to open. Used to work at Knott's Berry Farm in SoCal. A little kid went to ride the roller coaster Silver Bullet, a somewhat fast coaster with lots of twists and a couple of loops. I was one of the guys who checked the lap belt and whatnot before the ride took off. Kid looked scared but seemed like he was with his older brother and his friends. All the kids seemed to be a few years older, and probably didn't want to look like a chicken. Kid straight up crapped himself. It made the seat extremely moist and definitely smelled of poo. As he got off the ride you could see liquid dripping down his leg as he rushed off. People in the back of the line didn't really know what was going on, but the front of the line, as well as this kid's brother and his friends who just off too, definitely knew. Poor guy. We had to shut down the ride for about 2 hours to sanitize but played it off as technical difficulties. Haha, I loved the Silver Bullet when I went in April. The park was nearly empty so you could go around twice without leaving your seat. A few years back I worked at Cedar Point in Ohio and usually worked at the Dragster, one of the world's fastest roller coasters. The roller coaster goes 120 miles per hour and the ride lasts 6 seconds long. Let's just say that someone puking, pee, or shitting themselves was a daily thing. One time in particular some guy crap himself, and it happened to be diarrhea and got all over the man next to him and a little on the people behind him. He was wearing very short and baggy short shorts. We shut down the ride for 4 hours while me and a few unlucky cleanup guys searched the entire roller coaster for any droplets of crap. It was a very bad day to say the least. I remember this ride always being closed. I thought it had a lot of mechanical problems. Ugh. Former Disney World cast member here. Here are some stories. While working at Club Cool, some father dropped his daughter pants and let her squat on the floor. I had a standoff with a guest for 3 hours in the Mission Space gift shop because he was trying to steal Vanillations. Got told couple of times that I ruined someone's vacation. Met Warwick Davis, If you want horror stories, ask any cast member during the summer and you probably gonna get a Brazilian story. I worked on the cleaning crew at Soak City Knott's Water Park. Once I was mopping the bathroom and a dad and his kid were using the same stall to pee. And the kid says, "Dad, why is your penis so big?" And the dad just laughed and told him his would be that big someday. You could tell he was proud of his junk at that moment. Also, a little known fact is that women's bathrooms are 10 times nastier than men's bathrooms. People usually consider men slobs, but girls absolutely trash the bathroom, peeing all over the place, leaving tampons all over the place and other stuff. Also, I would not recommend going in the wave pool community pool. We frequently found poop, tampons and other stuff floating in there all the time. Volunteered at a fair one summer in my old town. Some mentally deficient guy got caught masturbating in the haunted house while one of the carts going through the ride rounded the corner and saw him in all his glory. I get away with this all the time. I just tell the policeman that I was pretending to be part of the ride, because seeing me rub one out is horrifying. Worked at Busch Gardens in Williamsburg in high school, renting out strollers and wheelchairs. We used to tweak the batteries on the electric scooters to boost the speed, and then have races around the park after it was closed. I've been going there for years. One trick I've learned is to use a bridge in the middle of the park. It's almost always faster. Lots of stairs though. Brazilians are a horror story within themselves. Truth. You see a Brazilian flag bobbing above the crowds off in the distance, you run the other way. When I went to Legoland. I was so excited I ran up and tried to hug a statue made of Legos and I cut my eye. And on that day, everything was not awesome. I worked at Paramount's Great America when that one guy jumped the fence at Top Gun, now called Flight Deck I think, to retrieve a hat and ended up getting kicked in the head by a rider. Top Gun is a suspension coaster. Your legs dangle and the track is over your head. The rider broke her femur and the guy died. I can attest to the fact that there is plenty of signage warning people not to enter the ride area, but people are really freaking stupid. Also, one of my friends got fired for credit card fraud there. Never even criminally charged for it. They just fired him and swept everything under the rug. I got a decent settlement check because the supervisors were making people work during their 10 minutes breaks. Apparently in their minds it was better to illegally make someone work during a break than to pay someone to work overtime. Only time I ever got overtime was Fright Fest because no one wanted to work in an amusement park during the freaking fall. I worked at a bad theme park for 3 months, in my teens. One morning, I get to my ride, and there's blood freaking everywhere. Feathers, too. So I do my walk around, and there's half a goose. It took 3 maintenance guys 2 hours to find the other half. Operated rides for 4 years. 2 moments stand out. The scariest moment I had was when lightning struck a utility pole below me. My position on the ride was about 50 feet up, knocking out power to my ride and forcing me and my supervisors to unload the ride in the middle of a lightning storm. The second was a guy who was very upset that I wouldn't let his kid who was a foot under the height requirement ride. I told him no early in the day, but one of my co-workers let the kid ride while I was on break. The family comes up later and the father, who was noticeably drunk, jumps 2 gates and over the tracks to threaten me with a knife. I called security and he ran. Not an employee, but I go to Universal Studios a lot. Here are a few tips. Always take the single rider option for any ride. The longest wait will be 10 minutes. The water rides aren't designed to get you wet. They are designed to get you soaked. Butterbeer is served in the Three Broomsticks restaurant, which always has a shorter line than the booths. Plus, the food there is really good. Unless you want to see a recreation of the wand choosing ceremony, skip the line outside of the wand shop and enter through the owl store. I love that place so much. I forget its name, but that roller coaster with the vertical chain climb where you select your own music is like the greatest thing ever. Kings Island rides operator here. A kid freaking jumped in the water at one of my rides, Congo Falls, going after a basketball after I denied him permission. I see him go in and I pound the e-stop and called it in. Police showed up, security, all my supervisors, and the freaking kid got away before they got there. So the little bastard caused a bunch of people to get stuck on the ride while we explained the rule about the water. Over at Extreme Sky Flare, it's a ripcord type ride where you swing back and forth on a long cable. Somebody got sick. Literally puked like 5 gallons of chunky crap back and forth over a 150-foot flight lane. There was so much freaking puke. We had to call park services to get enough Vauban puke absorber, and you could smell it throughout the whole area. Just a couple little horror stories. While working at Six Flags, maintenance was working on our larger SLC Boomerang. He was guiding the car back into the station, but did not look to make sure the floor was back in position. He steps where the floor isn't and falls a solid 15 feet to the ground. Best part of the story is that he looks around, realizes he's in a restricted zone, and puts on his neon vest before getting up off the ground. Worked for Disney World 05 college program. The full costumed characters aren't allowed to talk ever. Nearing the final days of the internship, several of the characters would whisper into children's ears variants of, "Only you can hear me, help me, Goofy will hurt you," etc. Other than that, a crap ton of suicides happen at the happiest place on earth. If you're a guest, are hungry, and don't wish to pay Disney's exorbitant prices for food, lie to the cashier, say you dropped your food or similar. Company policy: the guest is always right. Employees may never argue with a guest. They'll know you're full of it. Oh, and if a cast member ever says to you, "Have a Disney day," this is a secret way of saying frick you. The older hotels are riddled with asbestos, though this has likely changed. With little exception, every face character is a major prick. Not a worker, but I witnessed this. At a local water park there is a slide called the Triple Dip. The slide lives up to the name and dips 3 times. A really small kid rode down it once and just started rolling and doing backflips because he was too small. At the end of the slide he basically just got up and walked away acting like nothing happened. When I worked at the happiest place on earth in Cali, we always gave the nice guests the special treatment. Act like an ass and we would only make things harder for you. The cast members I worked with were always incredibly nice and would do anything for the guests. So if you treated them poorly, they would do the exact same thing to you. I myself made many a guest's day crappy because they wanted to get snippy with me. Also, like the person down there said, "Have a magical day" was our version of F you. My personal version was a southern accent. Made them feel extra stupid. I worked at a water park. Poo. Lots of poo in the wave pool. I worked at an aquarium once. One day this man came in with his infant son and started holding him over the shark tank and pretending to throw him in like an idiot. Surprise surprise, he then drops the kid in the freaking tank. The kid smacks his head on a rock and starts bleeding in this huge tank filled with sharks. A few people quickly jumped in and saved the kid from being eaten. Goes to show some people should just have been a stain on the sheets. I hope child protection services were called in, the father reported. I worked a roller coaster park, and whenever people would complain that they were lost or had to go to the bathroom, I'd get them on the path to the really expensive bathrooms. I miss playing Roller Coaster Tycoon. Free soda, $10 bathrooms. I worked at a water park. It was towards the end of the day and I was pushing the tubes down at the top of the slide. People started looking at me funny and looking around strangely. I started hearing people talking about poop but dismissed it as nothing. Then someone came up to me and told me to look at the platform below us. I look down and what do I find but a big load of human crap nicely placed on the middle of the stairs. When the ride operators tell you to empty your pockets, freaking do it. I'm not kidding. I can't tell you how many iPhones, watches, earrings etc I've seen fall while the ride was going. Even a wad of hundreds. And it's a really long procedure to retrieve the items. We actually have to shut the entire ride down because you didn't listen. And everyone in line gets super pissy for having to wait more than they already do. Not an employee, but last year I was at the Pleasure Pier in Galveston. They have a log flume ride relatively close to the entrance, and I was there to witness the most disastrous puke I had ever seen. As the log was coming close to the drop into the water pool at the bottom, there was a kid in the front who was obviously not doing so great. As the log tilted forward and rushed down, this poor kid blew a chucks in the front seat. But that wasn't the end of it. Apparently the wind, coupled with the moving ride, blew stomach chucks into the faces of seats 2, 3, and 4. It was terrible, but absolutely amazing.
Oh, hey, don't mind me. I'm just working hard on the next Dude Man video. Hey, by the way, if you want more awesome content like this, you should check that channel out. What you should. you should want to watch more awesome content, then head on over to Doot Man. I'm Lunar Steve and I'm the host over there. Go give it a look. I hope you like what you see.